One image worth 1,000 words. That can be the description of this image right here, showing a billboard in Iran that was hung up 2 or 3 days after the ceasefire between Israel and Iran has been achieved. Now, in order to understand the Iranian delusion and the propaganda machine hard at work, but even more than that, the desperate situation of the Iranian regime, we need to understand this picture better and break it down. First of all, the image depicts an ancient character from Persian history, King Shapur I. King Shapur reigned between 240 to 270, and the religion in Persia back then was the Zoroastrian religion, which he also lived by. He's mostly known for fighting the Romans, which he achieved a few victories against them, and the image is depicting one of his victories against the Roman Emperor Philip the Arab and Emperor Valerian. King Shapur is also known as the one implementing the term King of Kings. And just to present a little bit of time perspective, this is 300 years plus before the birth of Islam. And I guess I find it kind of funny that the Roman emperor that is kneeling before King Shapur in this image is named Philip the Arab. But I'll come back to the irony later. So what did the Iranian regime did? The place of Philip the Arab took the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which of course is kneeling before the Persian king. Behind him, you can see the image of Donald Trump. He took the place of Emperor Valerian, and the text on the image states, "Kneel before the Iranians." Now what we need to pay attention to, there is no image, not one, of Islam, not even the Islamic Republic of Iran flag, nothing. Usually we get to see the mosque in Jerusalem, maybe a crossed sword here and there, but not one Islamic symbol is presented on this image. Isn't that weird? And the lack of Islamic symbols says something. In order to understand what it means, we need to understand the state of the Iranian people. First of all, they do not see themselves as Arabs, and if you'll call them Arabs, they will be offended. They see themselves as Persians, as the descendants of royalty. And not only that, they see themselves as above Arabs. And it's not racially motivated, it's status motivated. They see themselves as the descendants of royalty of the Persian Empire. So you can imagine how much pride there is behind the Iranian people. And I bet that nowadays they feel a little bit conflicted, because a religion and a different type of government has been forced upon them. So you can imagine that the rule of the Ayatollah, especially after the uprising against the dictatorship of the Shah, was challenging to say the least. So what can you do to change the nature of a country? Start a war. So the Iran-Iraq war has started. Now this is not the main cause of the beginning of the Iran-Iraq war, but it was definitely a useful distraction to change the nature of Iran, starting by changing its name to the Islamic Republic of Iran and then change the flag. So there will be no question that this is an Islamic state. But at this point, the Iranian people are still missing something that will give them a sense of pride, a sense of leadership, and a sense of superiority on other countries. So what did the regime do? They declared themselves as the spiritual leaders of Islam, specifically Shiite Muslims, and they are the one dictating the will of Allah. And I am certain that the Ayatollah wanted to do another thing, but he was not able to, because then the Iranian people will rise up again. I bet that he wanted to destroy the Persian history. This is not a new practice by Muslims. Ever since the beginning of Islam, it always was a religious war, till this day, because they believe they have the only true faith, and any other faith is a blasphemy to their own. So every mention of another faith or historic symbols is deserved to be destroyed by Islam. This is in of itself is a crime against humanity. This is a crime against all of us. They are literally erasing our history, not the history of specific cultures, but the history of mankind. At this point, I think we should all question the integrity of Muslims in general, because if they are willing to blatantly destroy our collective history, what is the big deal of just telling lies and misrepresent history? This is nothing in compared to the efforts they actually went through to destroy history, to portray a different narrative in order to push your own. And if it sounds familiar, that's because it is. That's because it's the story of so many groups in the Arab world. But the most known for blatantly lie about history is the Palestinians. Now this is a whole subject in of itself and it deserves another video. But back to our story. Can you imagine what it took from the Iranian regime to give up and not representing Islam in that sign? Why do they need to do that? What caused that? I think the answer is fairly simple. The Iranian regime led the Iranian people into isolation from the rest of the world, into sanctions, into wars, and into religious conflicts. And if that's not enough, the Iranian people have also watched the Iranian government wasting its money, not on their own people, but on military development, while subsidizing terror groups in different parts of the world. All those events take their toll on the Iranian people, and I think that the Iranian regime is feeling that now more than ever. The threat of uprising is closer than ever, and one wrong move will be the last straw that will break the camel's back. And that's why that cheap appeal to the Iranian people tried to appeal to their sense of pride in their history. while ditching Islam behind. I can't imagine how bruising it was to the Iranian regime ego to go that way to appeal to the Iranian people. The understanding that they need to put Islam aside for now, because nothing good have ever happened to the Iranian people because of that religion. So desperate times require desperate measures, and have no doubt about it. To the Iranian regime, this is desperate times. And that's what got me thinking and also a little bit worried. Because lying is pretty much a doctoring for the Islamic world, so I'm not surprised that they claim a victory after this 12-day conflict. Let me just remind you that during the 12-day conflict, they claimed they shot down 3 Israeli F-35 jets and captured its pilots. And anyone that is familiar with the Islamic world knows that there is no way that they will not share any information or pictures of their captives or the fact that they just humiliated the Zionist entity. So obviously those were lies, and the Islamic world is schooling us on how to use social media. Similar to the spaghetti method, throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. And there is no downside to it, because in our crazy world, even if you are caught lying, there is no consequences. You can just move on to the next lie. So what's the upside? That people will believe your lie? Well, great. Now you are able to push your narrative and have people on your side. And this is exactly what everyone in the Islamic world is doing, especially around the subject of conflicts. And to deceive an infidel is very much a religious rule in Islam. But what got me worried is the fact that the Iranian regime is now in desperate times. And that reminded me of the Iran-Iraq war. I don't see any other option for them not to attack Israel at this point, because war provides great distraction for your own people, and sometimes it's even a unifying force. And there is the matter of the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that were in the wind, and now the Iranian government is confirming that they were destroyed in one of the strikes. And this is something that is outside of their doctrine. They never done that before. They never confirmed amount of damage from the Israeli strikes, and I think that fact alone should get everyone worried, because another common practice in the Muslim world is self-elimination while eliminating infidels, the S-Vest practice. And if you're talking about a government that doesn't have the support of its people, and more than that, they're under the threat of uprising by their own people, the S-Vest practice come to mind. And how does it look like when a government does that? The use of nuclear weapons. So the way I see it, they have everything they need to use nuclear weapons in order to drag the rest of us for that type of war. The elimination of others by self-destruction. So that got me worried, because the world is not paying attention. Everyone is distracted. The liberals on social media were desperately trying to look who are the Druze in the last few days, while being confronted with their own morals blowing up in their face. And the rest of the world is giving a stage to a murderous guy in a suit and trying to talk about Palestinian state, focusing on a successfully led campaign by a terror group that was trained, financed, and led by the Iranian regime. So yeah, Iran still have its proxy wars, and that campaign is definitely one of them. And that campaign alone provide a huge distraction, and a very useful one for the Iranian regime, in order to regroup from whatever comes next. But there is a light in the end of this tunnel. Now the ball is in the Iranian regime hands, and whatever they decide to do next will determine the future of the Middle East. And just by looking at our history and the Islamic religion, I have no doubt that they will choose wrong. They will choose something that will lead to the Iranian regime demise. So the end result is good, but sadly, in order to get there will be a bloody way ahead, and this is just the reality in the Middle East.